Welcome to the It's All About Missions podcast with Brady Van Winkle, as we endeavor to talk about missions and the need for the gospel all around the world. We hope we can help you find your place in world evangelism. And for questions or for more information, please check out it'sallaboutmissions.com. And now we hope you enjoy the show. Hello, and thanks for joining us on this week's episode of It's All About Missions Country of the Week Country Spotlight. And we are back on the continent of Europe. We're looking at a country that you may not know about. One of the Balkan countries, I believe is correct. It is the country of Estonia. And you as myself, you may not know much about the country of Estonia. That's why we do these. We want to do these podcasts so that we can learn more about countries and know more about them and know how to better pray for them. The country of Estonia has a population of about 1.3 million people. The capital city there is Tallinn. That's Tallinn. I have no clue if I'm saying that right. I'm sure I'm not. The language there is Estonian. I'm not even sure what Estonian is, but it's its own language there. Now, the capital city, Tallinn, has a population of around 500,000 people. So there are no cities in the country that are over 1 million, but it is a country in the gospel. And it's a country, that's gone through Cold Wars. At one time, it was underneath Russia, the USSR, the Soviet Union's rule, and all of that stuff. But, it's a country in the gospel. What breaks my heart about this country is that there's about, I was looking online, there's a statistic of what different religious people are in the country, but about 75% of the population there in Estonia would consider themselves to be irreligious. That means they have no religion, they don't follow any religion whatsoever, they have none. Now, really, there's no one that's not religious. They have some type of religion, whether they're believing in money or wealth or themselves or whatever it is. They're believing and trusting in something to get themselves through. But the people of Estonia, most of them, are lost and going to hell. They're not going to church. They're not having the opportunity to hear the gospel. They don't even care about it. But most people never think about the country of Estonia. Most people never even pray for the country of Estonia because they've never heard of it. But maybe God will work in your heart and say, I'll give my life. And we need to pray that God will raise up some laborers. Maybe it'd be you. They'll say, I'll go to the country of Estonia. I'll go to the gospel there. Because guess what? There's open doors. There's the ability to go and take and preach the gospel in the country of Estonia. There are wide open doors there. There's freedom of religion in the country. And so we can get in there. We can take the gospel. Let's pray that God will raise up some laborers to go to the country of Estonia. But let's pray. I'm sure there might be some people already laboring in Estonia. Let's pray that God will continue to give them boldness, that God will continue to work in their ministries, that they'll see fruit for their labor, that they'll see men trained and sent out, the Estonians sent out to preach the gospel. Let's pray for those Estonian pastors, that God will embolden them, that God will use them to preach the gospel and to share the gospel with their congregations and raise their congregations and disciple their congregations. Let's pray for the Estonian Christians, that they'll be willing to share the gospel with their friends and their co-workers and the people they meet. But let's pray for the country of Estonia. 75% irreligious. 75%. And really most people there, even on top of that, there's Lutheran and other religions that, again, are all work-based religions. And there are people dying, going to hell. Let's pray that God will work in the hearts and lives of the people of Estonia, that God will work in their hearts and lives, and they will turn from darkness into light. They will be searching for answers, and that God will raise up laborers that can take the gospel there. And let's be praying that we can see Estonia reach the gospel in this generation as God sends laborers there. But also, as we're praying, we should be endeavoring to do all that we can right where we are to see the world reach the gospel in this generation. My question to you is, what are you doing to help see the world reach the gospel? We should be praying. But you know what? You should be involved in your local church. You should be involved in sharing the gospel and discipleship. You should be looking to go on mission trips. You should be doing all that you can. And whether God calls you and says, I want you to give your life to missions, or whether you stay, we should be endeavoring and doing all we can and praying and laboring so that we can see the world reach with this gospel in this generation. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of It's All About Missions. And we'd like to ask you to do a couple things for us. The first thing I ask you to do, so if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date when all of our new episodes drop. And that way, as a new episode comes, you'll get a notification that lets you know, hey, we've got a new episode of It's All About Missions. Second thing I ask you to do, if you haven't yet, please make sure to leave us a review. These reviews are very vital, and they help us out, and they help other people to see us in the podcast player of choice. They'll see us and see those reviews and say, hey, I want to check out this podcast. And lastly, one other thing I'd like you to do, why don't you share us with a friend, a family member, somebody you know, and say, hey, why don't you go over and check out It's All About Missions. That'll help us grow our audience, help people to know more about It's All About Missions, and guess what? It'll help more people get involved in reaching the world with the gospel. I want to challenge you to know that the Bible, it's all about missions. And as a Christian, your life should be all about missions. And what are you going to do to impact the world with the gospel in this generation?